Hey, who gets to do the intro?
Me.
I want to do it.
Flip a coin.
Okay.
Tails. Damn it.
Welcome to the first of what we hope could be several episodes of Batter Beats, the show where we lose at betting so you don't have to. If you're looking for expert picks, go somewhere else. If you're looking for people who know what they're talking about, you're in the wrong place. This is a show by people who get bets wrong, so maybe you can fade us and get your picks right. I'm joined, as always, by former ESPN, Sports Illustrated, and USA Today sports writer Brant James, a man far better at covering sports than he is at predicting coin flips.
Always. Can it be always with us if this is the first one? I mean, I feel like you're being a little bit presumptive there.
Well, technically, it is always, even though this is our first episode. So, if so facto, that counts as being right?
Yeah. All right. It's too early to argue. 1 for 1. I'll give that to you.
All right. I'm also going to use that at the casino. Hope they take that argument too when I cash my next losing bet.
If they let you back in, that is.
Yeah, let's not bring that up this early. So I am your other co-host, Ryan Butler, a far less accomplished writer that's worked for a bunch of newspapers that you have never read or heard of. And in the unlikely chance that you've read one of those or any newspaper anytime recently, you would have read in said newspaper about the decline of that industry, which also helps explain why we're starting this betting podcast by two people who are not very good at betting.
And not just betting. I mean, we'll talk about, other interesting thing. We're not gonna have a guy on that's gonna yell at you to take the Falcons in the over. We're gonna give you some stories.
Unless we think we should take the Falcons in the over.
We're not gonna tell them if we think that, because we're gonna keep that for ourselves because we're greedy bastards.
Now I got it. So okay,
all right,
going the opposite.
Yeah, stay with us. I think you're gonna hear some interesting stuff that you're not gonna hear other places.
Exactly. Like what Brant had for breakfast this morning. That's a good story.
It's we'll make them come back.
Yeah, we'll save that for episode 2. I'll save that for the best of.
Yeah.
So exactly, good point. We're a well-rounded podcast here, though most of what we'll discuss is sports betting, because that's kind of what we do. If you could see us, you could tell we obviously don't play sports, but we're pretty good at watching them.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to tell you what happened. I mean, I'll tell you something, but it's probably wrong. And if you trust me with your money, then yeah, it's on you, man.
Yeah. So with that positive attitude, that is how we came up with Batter Beats. It's kind of like bad beats, but batter.
Way batter.
So for all of our listeners, I have my mom said she would play it once, maybe not listen to it.
Yeah, that's good. I could. I'm going to tell my son not to listen to it. And I think that will make him want to listen to it.
Oh, good idea.
Okay. Brain games. So that's 2.
Okay, so that listeners. All right, we're doing good. The good news is that while we don't necessarily know what we're talking about or doing, somehow or another we've stumbled upon people that do. Assuming we produce episode 2, fingers crossed, maybe episode 3, we'll talk to people in the betting industry that actually know something about something, probably betting, which is a major upgrade for us. In the meantime, though, before we get to these people that actually know what they're talking about, I am sure that our listeners, as confirmed too, are just dying to hear how we ended up doing this podcast. So, Brant, how did you become a pioneer of Batter Beats?
It's a long and semi-interesting story.
Better than most of your stories, then.
Yeah, that's hurtful, but true. Began a journalism career in a small town in Maryland. Fast forward, covered some high school stuff, landed a job at the Baltimore Sun, and then I ended up in Tampa Bay, where we're currently recording this, at the St. Petersburg Times, which is now the Tampa Bay Times.
R.I.P.
Yeah, there you go.
St. Pete Times.
Covered some high schools, covered some hockey, covered a Stanley Cup championship with Tampa Bay.
Go Bolts.
Covered racing cars for quite a while, and
any type of racing cars, or just any cars that were racing.
Stuff going over the bridge, but mostly NASCAR and Indy 500 type stuff. It was stuff that went fast. It was fairly interesting.
Okay, so not the street racing that I did in high school.
That's illegal, and the children should not do that.
That's true.
And I think you actually just got a fine by mentioning that. So
Okay. I'm going to the penalty box.
Looking for a new host next week. Anyway, so sort of the confluence of journalism plus, wagering on things that became Batter Beats was when I covered horse racing. I did a bunch of Triple Crown races.
Horse racing, the cars of the past.
Where it's 1 horsepower. It's really, simplified.
That's how they do that. Whoa.
Yeah, that's how they
We're
do
already
that.
learning things on this.
I know this has sort of become
We're doing better than I expected. We're learning something.
Suddenly this is like a Khan Academy podcast. But so betting, I struggled to think of the first time I bet on something. I mean, obviously I didn't win because I wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be sort of an insider, parlaying that sort of savant knowledge that I had on wagering. It was probably on a Tuesday afternoon and it was raining and the track was muddy at Laurel in Maryland. It sounds sad. It probably was. I would love to say that I bet Funny Side to win the Kentucky Derby and was just brilliant. I did write a story about them because it was a good personality piece. So I'll take that as a win.
You're a big mutter.
I'm a big mutter.
That's tip number 1, guys. If it's raining and it's muddy, go with the mutters.
Yes, it's traction. It's all about traction. So all of those things, I feel like it's just sort of been this is a summation. I was meant to be here in this studio looking at you right now, telling you this story.
That's I'm sorry that you had to look at me for that. Should have just stayed at the horse track.
Not as sorry.
That was a better scenario.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. No, you're bringing up horse racing, and that kind of is how I ended up in this acclaimed industry. And as most people, it was through my great grandmother actually that really got me into the fine art of horse racing.
I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, the typical American success story. But my great grandmother, we called her a horse racing enthusiast. Others would have called her a horse racing degenerate. But she really loved, going and seeing the ponies, placing a few bucks down.
Yeah.
Her strategy, which she taught me at a young age, was to always bet on the number 1 horse, the number 3 horse, and the number 5 horse. Regardless of any scenario, she didn't take your advanced analytic approach towards mudding and weather. There might have been 4 horses in the race, and she was still betting on the 5. But actually that approach, I think she did better than most others. A man and a great grandma must have a code. Oh yeah, it was 135. Was it any good? It's always 130. It's 130 twice every day. Did that ever work? 135 ever? I'm sure over the course of decades. My grandparents' inheritance wasn't as big as they thought it might be. So maybe, we might, hold on guys, I might have to go solve this later. But anyway, that was sort of my start with it. The only experience. I did really, really get into sports. I am old enough. I'm not as old as Brant. Few people are. No. But I am old enough that we did have school libraries. Books were still like a thing. And I would check out these team history books of all the NFL teams and read them cover to cover, and everything from the early founding of the team to like 1997 when that book ended. And really internalized it. I was real life of the party in middle school, sitting and memorizing all these football books and things about Bart Starr and Paul Hornung. I really liked the Packers book. That was a particularly good one. That one was. How'd that one end? It ends with Brett Favre winning the Super Bowl. Oh, I'm not familiar with him. Yeah. Well, you like the glory guys. I mean, you like the 60s. Yeah. No face mask. Yeah. I mean, you're still wishing for Newt Rockne and the Notre Dame box. Like, that's good stuff. That was when you were in your 20s when that was happening. High def with black and white. When that television invention came out, that was big. Any more than 3 channels is a complete indulgence. We're gonna one of our later episodes. Well, you guys can hear his famous rant about TV channels exceeding 3. Oh, ABC, NBC, CBS. What else could you need? Says the former ESPN employee. So anyway, with that knowledge, I thought eventually, well, I've spent all of my formative years memorizing every Super Bowl winner. Maybe I could use that and try to profit off of it. So got kind of dabbled in. Some different betting options and all that on, football, basketball, and so on. And realized pretty quickly that approach wasn't going to work either. So thought, don't have the skills, needed for betting, but I do have the knowledge. Maybe I could talk about how bad I am at using those 2 things. And that's part of how we ended up here. That's interesting. 2 thoughts. Life of the party. Did you get invited to any parties reading your Paul Hornung books? Can I plead the fifth?
That sounds like a no. And also, good job making lemonade from all those lemons, because you're talking about a lot of negative stuff that got you here. I mean, we're into this, right?
If I ever did get invited to a party talking about Super Bowl II, now that would really liven it up.
Yeah.
I think people would really want to hear about that really great game against the Chiefs.
It's going to get you to the beer really
Actually,
quick.
sorry, that Chiefs was Super Bowl I, that Raiders Super Bowl II.
There you go again with your books.
Sorry, I know you're used to parchment and scrolls and books. So the concept of binding is still...
I like to draw on the cave wall with my finger.
Your hieroglyphics.
Yeah, I'm rich in experience and knowledge. That's all I'm saying.
Pyramid building.
Okay, so what's Batter Beats all about? We've already told you that this is not going to be a show where we bring on an odds maker and tell him to bet the Falcons over. That's not what we do. We're going to try.
We're not big on the Falcons this year.
Falcons are terrible. We're going to inform you. We're going to entertain. We're also going to bring in people who you may not have heard of. And I'm pretty much guaranteeing you that Emmanuel Maceda de Medeiros from the Sport Integrity Global Alliance is one of those. And I'm looking at the look on your face, Ryan, and you'd never heard of that guy until I just read that.
I haven't heard of any of the last few words you said.
Exactly.
Could you help us?
Keep it up. So, Mr.
Wait, what's his name?
Ed. Call him Ed. Whatever. So we got Ed on the phone. His organization is out to basically promote a square deal in sports betting. They know what's going to happen. They want it to be legal. They want everyone involved, from the athletes to the people betting to the people putting on the events and creating the odds, to know that everything is fair and equitable. They know this is a business. They just want everyone to be treated fairly. They want everything to be
That'd be nice.
Filled with integrity. Yeah, who can be against that? So I think you're going to like this interview. There's some hot topics in there: integrity, fairness, and money.
Topics.
Money. I think that's what's going to bring you back, is the money.
I'm intrigued.
So, well, then listen. Here's Mr. Medeiros. In general, to my understanding, this is the first one you've done that specifically applied to sports betting, and even if it was or it wasn't, why was it important to do this, and what do you think everyone learned?
Well, definitely this was the first SIGA-branded forum focusing on sports betting integrity, a topic whose significance requires no emphasis. It's quite evident, and the fact that we teamed up with teams here in Louisville, Kentucky, having a highly participated conference and event with over 2,000 participants shows that there is not only an important moment that requires firm decisions and concerted efforts to ensure a robust regulatory framework as far as sports betting is concerned, but also there are many people that are interested in being part of this discussion. And on behalf of SIGA, we were, of course, delighted to bridge, to foster, to provide, a platform for these discussions. We have here not only the representatives from the sport movement, but also the wider industry. And they are the ones that are responsible for a very successful sector in the U.S. And if we talk about sports betting, of course, we talk about an industry that is wider in terms of revenue generation than sport itself. The amount of money that is estimated in the global sports betting industry equals to something like 2 or 3 trillion US dollars a year. Mm-hmm. So it's a very powerful, fast-growing industry. And like other dynamic sectors, here in the U.S., I think it's still early days. A lot has been discussed. Expectations are high. Interests are quite often divergent. And that is more the case between the sports betting operators and regulators, in contrast with the competition organizers and other key stakeholders in the sport movement. But I'm optimistic that the superior interests of sport, meaning sport integrity, will be consensual and will be placed high at the top of the agenda.
Mm-hmm. Now, was it important to have this now, considering the May Supreme Court decision? Is that why it was urgent? or timely and compelling to bring these sort of stakeholders to get together and discuss these sort of things because sports betting is going to become more legal and prevalent in the U.S.?
It's not only timely; it is vital. The market will not wait for the states to put in place, the states or even the Congress to put in place a regulatory framework that brings stability and certainty in this sector. And the fact that we see dogmatic positions adopted by the different stakeholders does not make things easier. So for us, it was urgent to foster the discussion, and we are in a privileged position because we are independent, we are neutral, we pursue a global mission, and the way we see sport in the U.S. is not different from the way we see sports betting in other continents, because it's truly a global industry.
Do you
not even during the past few years, no one could contain operators, legal or illegal, to offer bets on U.S. sports. So you cannot build a wall, or you cannot proclaim through a decree that betting does not exist simply because there is a prohibition. So the opportunity to open the market in a regulated fashion, taking into account the legitimate interests of all sides of the industry, is here, has arrived, and it's very important that we use the wealth of knowledge and experience and share it with those that in the U.S. are the driving forces in the market.
Do you think that a regulated and legal sports betting market is better? Is a better outcome for people who want to bet, for society in general, for athletes, anyone who might be, the integrity of the game? Is it better to have it legal and scrutinized by governments and taxed, as opposed to not having it all, where you're going to have an underground betting environment?
I think that is irrefutable. The false perception that a legal prohibition of betting can contain betting itself, or can contain criminal infiltration, and all the detrimental consequences that are associated with the illegal markets, I think is a theory whose merits have failed. The regulated open of the market, imposing standards for sports betting operators to ensure that they have the right credentials, they operate in a transparent manner, the financial flows are legitimate, is vital. The only way to prevent illegal betting, match fixing, and sports betting fraud, and also the money laundering that is so often associated with these dark spaces, is through ensure and enforcing proper and robust regulation. This is the first step, and I'm glad to see that so many states are now moving forward in this direction. Although the way it will end is yet to be seen, as there are strong voices advocating that a federal approach should be put in place, assuring minimum standards and a minimum level of playing field.
Would you rather see a federal regulation governing all of it, or are you okay? Do you think it's okay for individual states to have their own laws, strike their own deals, and sort of go at it that way?
I think the scenario that we have in front of us points to a state-by-state approach. I would like to see, however, a minimum level of consistency, coherence, minimum level of common approach to what are global problems. For the safeguard of the integrity in sport, for the safeguard of the trust of the fans and the legitimate interests of the investors, there are a number of factors that require a global approach rather than a fragmented one. But the scenario that we have ahead of us is indeed a state-by-state approach. I think the regulators are also coming together, discussing these matters, reaching agreements amongst themselves, and the same will happen with the leagues and other competition organizers whose legitimate interests must also be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the most pressing issue that the stakeholders must take into account, whether it be, protecting the athletes who could be under pressure, or the consumers who could be playing a game that's rigged, or exploitation? I mean, what do you consider to be the most pressing set of issues?
Well, the most pressing set of issues is to shift the current discussion, which is focused on the money side, how much money it will bring, and focused also on the integrity. I have not seen the integrity being discussed with the same level of interest, commitment, and intensity that I see the financial aspects, and that I think is something that needs to change. Obviously, when you discuss integrity, this implies a number of questions that require clear answer. For example, which types of bets should be offered, because certain types of bets are detrimental for the integrity of the game.
Yeah.
Who can offer these bets? So the licensing system that will enable private or public operators to offer bets to the general public is also a matter of the utmost significance, and it should involve integrity checks. It should ensure financial integrity and financial transparency in order to avoid money laundering and tax evasion. The training and education of all participants in the game is also crucial. And by key participants in the game, I mean, of course, the league officials, the union leaders, the athletes, the coaches, the managers, even the doctors who have a privilege, who have access to privileged information. All these constellation of key individuals in sport, they do require training education. Not to mention, of course, the youngsters, the young athletes, and they are the most vulnerable in sport. You need also proper information exchange mechanisms to ensure that the information is shared between the relevant authorities, which includes state, law enforcement, the competition organizer, and the sports betting operators. There needs to be dialogue. This is vital. It's vital to adopt a preventive approach to what is not just an opportunity, but a true problem, as we have seen in Asia, we have seen in Europe, we have seen in Africa and many other territories. And obviously there is this unavoidable question, which is related with the economic viability of sports and the relationship between the sports betting operators and the competition organizers. I have been deeply involved in this discussion for almost 20 years in my previous role as CEO of the European and World Football Leagues. The position within the world of soccer is consensual, and I would say that the position within the world of sports is consensual. And the leagues believe that by organizing the competition, by developing the fixture list, by certifying officially the results, by putting the show together, in one word, they create content that justifies and merits legal protection, and that includes that the commercial exploitation of that content needs to be legally recognized, and then it needs to be consent, and that involves a fair financial return. On the other side, I see some sports betting organizers, operators, better saying, and regulators with a dogmatic position denying any right to a financial return or a sports integrity tax, as it is more commonly said in this country. As CEO of SIGA, I take no side on this discussion because our emphasis is not on the commercial aspects, notwithstanding the relevance. Our focus and our commitment is to preserve the integrity. But I urge both sides to ensure dialogue and do the utmost to reach common ground. Because if that does not happen, it will be detrimental for the whole industry, and that brings no benefit to anyone.
Yeah. Are you hopeful? Do you see anyone taking the lead, or at least an interest within the different stakeholders to, provide a level playing field where integrity can be assured?
Well, I think that hope is an act of faith. I'm a man of faith, although, at my age, I need to see first to believe after. I have no doubt that for all these stakeholders, integrity is a must. It's top priority. But where I see serious divergence is in relation with the revenue streams and the distribution of revenue provided by sports betting. I see that there will be, before things get better, they will get worse. But I think that, common sense will prevail, and learning from the mistakes that have been experienced in the European regulatory framework, as well as in the Asian and in other parts of the world, that can provide also a benchmark very useful to facilitate consensus and agreement between parties. And we are already seeing examples where through bilateral agreement these deals are being made. We have seen with the MGM and the NBA, and that is a possibility to occur. But obviously, you can leave this on a case-by-case basis, or you can promote a more concerted approach, respecting each side's legitimate interests, but without prejudice to what is fundamental, that is the integrity of the game.
Okay, so that was the interview with Mr. De Medeiros. That was from a very global perspective, but it still certainly pertains here in the United States. But let's back up. There's a lot going on very fast in the United States in regards to legal sports betting. We're going to start from the beginning with the big term paper question that I'm going to throw at Ryan. Ryan, where are we and how did we get here?
Well, thank you, Brant. We started in 1776.
Too far.
Oh, okay.
Speed up.
Hold on. Okay. So we are now at a position where sports betting can be more open than it ever has been, really since about 1776. Fun fact, if you guys really do want to learn history, is that we did fund much of the American Revolution through the lottery. So we'll get that into the next episode.
Mega Millions?
Kind of, yeah.
Did Ben Franklin win that?
I think like twice. How do you think he got so famous? Yeah. Lightning does strike twice.
Yeah.
Ben Franklin jokes.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Look, we're going to have a history podcast spinoff if you guys are interested. So get ready for that. So anyway, one of the biggest questions that we get, because, we're really popular guys out on the streets, people are stopping us left and right, is what's going on with sports betting, obviously. A lot of people are kind of confused. They might have heard of the Supreme Court ruling earlier this year that basically opened up the sports betting landscape. What the court did was strike down a federal ban on sports betting, which meant that sports betting was no longer illegal, but it wasn't necessarily legal. If that's confusing, it's because it is.
Okay, so where can I bet right now?
All right. Are you ready for the list of states where you can bet?
I got my pen.
All right. First state, you'll never guess this, is Nevada. Surprise.
I would have guessed that.
They were grandfathered before the federal ban. They're still going. Brant, I know you're planning that big second bachelor party to Las Vegas.
Nope.
Sports betting is still open on the menu. You're ready to go. Nothing has changed there. The second one where you might go, another hot bachelor party destination, is the state of Delaware.
I went to Delaware a lot as a child because I grew up near there, and I'm good.
A lot of bachelor parties.
I'm good. All right.
But if you change it, Delaware is lovely.
Oh, yeah.
Great state. But that is the second state. And it was the first state to legalize sports betting after the Supreme Court struck down that federal ban. Right now, there are 3 horse track casinos, which they call racinos, that are now taking sports bets. So next time you're in Dover, stop by, place a bet.
Blue Hen Mall, and then over to the Dover Casino.
Hey, you see,
Blue Hen Mall is a real thing, by the way.
Oh, I bet it's a Blue Hen state.
Yeah, it is.
Joe Flacco is a Blue Hen.
All 3 counties.
Yeah, but 3. Whoa, 3 casinos. A lot going on there.
Yes.
So for all you Delaware listeners, a lot. Get excited.
I feel like if we had one, we just lost him because we were kind of mean. But anyway,
okay.
Who's next? Let's be nicer to the next state.
Well, this is an easy state to be nice to. New Jersey, home to a different type of bachelor party setup. New Jersey actually led some of the legal challenges that ultimately overturned the ban. New Jersey is now our second largest sports betting market. Woo!
Good
All
for
right,
New Jersey.
Yeah, Garden State.
They are
being
killing
great.
It. All right.
And even better, you don't have to go to a casino. You could go to one of the several beautiful facilities at Atlantic City. There's also Monmouth Park. There's also the Meadowlands. But if you are in New Jersey, cross the New Jersey line, cross that Delaware River, you're in there, you can place place a bet through a licensed app anywhere in the state.
On the phone.
On the phone. Yeah, well, not your phone. Yours is dial-up phone, so it's a little harder for you.
You know what? You would struggle to use a dial-up phone, I think.
Oh, I have no idea.
You don't know what I had to go through.
If I was locked in a room with a dial-up phone and they said, try to call someone to get out of this room with this dial-up phone, I'd still be there. I would never get out.
That's the problem with your generation.
I would call you to tell me how to use a rotary phone, but I wouldn't know how to use it. It's a conundrum.
You wouldn't get it unless I sent you a DM or an Instagram of how to do it or something.
I know how you guys.
I know how you kids work.
Do rotary phones get DMs?
Moving on.
So, New Jersey, online, great setup. 4th state with sports betting, Mississippi.
I did not see that one coming.
Mississippi, believe it or not, Mississippi is the 3rd biggest gambling market in America.
All right.
More than 24 casinos spread across the state, along the Mississippi River mostly, and the Gulf Coast. Plenty of opportunities there. Mississippi is rocking and rolling. Now, they don't have online sports betting. They're thinking about it, but pretty much anywhere you're in the state, you can get to a casino pretty quickly. Place a bet. It's a good setup. Mississippi's doing well.
All right, Mississippi. All right, who else we got?
West Virginia.
All right.
Wild and wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
2 casinos right now have sports betting capabilities. Charlestown Races in lovely Charlestown, not Charleston. 2 very different cities, both wonderful. Where I, as a young lad, learned to bet on the 1, 3, and 5 horses with my great grandma. But now, not only can I do that, bet on the 1, 3, and 5 horse, I can also place a sports bet. So they're going, and then also the Greenbrier Resort, which has been visited by, I believe, the majority of presidents in the last century.
That's where the Congress hides too if they drop the big one, right?
Spoiler. Well, now they know.
Yeah.
Way to go.
We got bigger problems than spoiling where the congressmen go if they drop the big one. They still have
that's
big?
true.
Whatever. Anyway.
They actually moved it even before you ruined the surprise, but don't tell them.
Anyway.
And then number 6, the most unexpected of them all, New Mexico.
New Mexico kind of snuck up on us, didn't it?
New Mexico snuck up on, including the Attorney General and the officials of that great state, the land of enchantment.
The land of, well, as I've rebranded it, the land of enrichment. Here's what I see out of New Mexico.
Are you on their marketing team now?
I'm kind of pitching to be. If
the tourism bureau.
If you're listening, New Mexico. Now, I don't want to get too much into the legislation part of that, but I just have this vision of somebody somewhere in the legal department in New Mexico just getting screamed at when the legislature finds out that the language of their contract with the tribe there already allows sports betting, and they don't get to negotiate for this thing that's got to be worth millions or billions with a B in the future.
Somebody is now unemployed in the New Mexico Attorney General's office for this. To kind of go back on what Brant's talking about, most in any state with Native American casinos, where they're allowed to do that, they work out contracts with the state called compacts. Gotta have your own special name for it. Clever. So these compacts help direct the direction of what these casinos are and are allowed to do. Every state, because they don't want to make it easy for us, has different rules, and some states allow slots at their Native American casinos, some don't, some whatever. New Mexico's forgot to include a provision that prohibited sports betting. When the Supreme Court ruling came down, lawyers who are much smarter and getting paid much better than we are looked through the New Mexico Compact and realized there was a loophole, as all lawyers do. And because of that, they were allowed to take bets. So the Santa Ana Star in New Mexico, about 10 miles north of Albuquerque, was the first casino to do so. And technically, there's about a dozen or so, maybe a little bit more in New Mexico, Native American casinos. All will also, really on paper, be eligible to do that as well. So New Mexico became the first state without an act of the legislature. Most of the time, the legislature likes to get involved, so there will be some surprises. I think it was a rough day in the Attorney General's office when he realized that somebody who was getting paid better than he was found a loophole.
I think the billable hours for attorneys that deal with these contracts through other states are probably just absolutely going through the roof now.
You'd be able to play a lot of slots with that money they
a
get
lot of
there.
slots. All right, so I'm visualizing a map. I'm looking at the Mid-Atlantic. I see Delaware. I've got New Jersey. I've got West Virginia. Way down in the south there, I've got Mississippi. Out in the desert, I'm seeing Nevada, and I'm seeing New Mexico with legal sports betting.
That's a really good geographic breakdown of the U.S. I'm
impressed.
Like
3,000 miles just in like a couple of words there. There's some holes. There's some more space. Tell me what's next. Who's going to get this?
So we're looking, if you are in the Mid-Atlantic and you're not in one of those states that Brant so eloquently mentioned, you're still probably in luck, assuming that you're better bettors than we are. The rest of the Mid-Atlantic looks like it's going to really fill in. Pennsylvania is really poised to take sports betting maybe by the end of 2018, early 2019. We're also looking at New York, possibly. Rhode Island is pretty close as well. Some of the New England states, if you go a little further north, again, geography, got that down. Well, those are all looking pretty good there, that we're going to fill those in. And I think by the end of 2019, pretty much if you are north of the Mason-Dixon line, you are going to be able to place a sports bet.
Now, I'm looking at these and I'm curious. I'll throw this question to you. If your neighbor has it, if your neighbor state has it, does it put pressure on you to get it? I mean, I look at Delaware, tiny little state, 3 little counties. They were pulling money out of all these neighboring states, and suddenly they're legalizing sports betting too, which seems like a real bad deal for Delaware and their budget. But it feels like if your neighbor has it, you want to keep your people in state spending money in your place.
Brant, nothing gets past you.
Very little.
You should run for state house. Look at this. You're
New Mexico. I'm going for New Mexico.
Tourism and the government.
Yes.
I like the platform there.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, and that's why you're seeing clusters, especially in the Mid-Atlantic, where this was kind of the impetus of it all. States do not like when people spend money in other states, so they're realizing maybe they're not as big into gambling, or there's not a lobby, there's not a push. They still realize, well, that's millions of dollars that we could have that's going elsewhere. So yeah, that's what we'll see there. I'm sure you remember the original lottery that helped fund the American Revolution from the 1700s, but I'm sure you also remember the modern lottery, quote unquote, when it came back in the 1960s. I know that was big for you. New Hampshire in the 60s came up with the idea of a state lottery, which is crazy for us millennials to think that the lottery wasn't always around. Not surprisingly, after New Hampshire came up with the lottery, the next 4 states to do so were all in the New England region, Mid-Atlantic. There's a reason why for it. People are sick of seeing other people cross state lines to buy lottery tickets, so they create their own lottery. We're going to see the same thing with sports betting, especially in the Mid-Atlantic.
I know that those folks out in the Midwest, I know their dollars spent just like everyone else's, and I know they're just really dying to wager on stuff. I mean, when are they going to get hooked up?
Well, also with it, it's kind of trickling over as well. Think about it. West Virginia has already taken bets. Pennsylvania is poised to do so. The next big wave of states is going to be the Midwest. Ohio, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, See, I got some geography knowledge too.
That's pretty good.
Kentucky, which is technically in the South, but borders all of those. Again, I'm getting real nitty gritty. I am a human map.
Yeah, you're like down to the nano.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not to, I don't want to brag too much or intimidate you, but I was the J. Lupton Simpson Middle School 2004 Geography B 10th place finisher.
Your childhood stories don't get any happier.
Yeah, I wish I would have finished top 9.
Yeah.
Still have the certificate somewhere. So
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do.
Yeah. Typically, it's odd actually. Typically, I bring it around with me.
Yeah.
But anyway, we are looking at the Midwest will be the next frontier. The state legislatures all come back, reconvene for their 2019 sessions beginning in January, February. All of them have pre-filed legislation, which is a big indicator that they're going to talk about it. Most of what's happened behind, it happens behind the scenes. And when they get there to the state houses, it's kind of all, a lot of it is worked out already. A lot that needs to happen, but yeah, I know, if you're in wintertime, let's say, I know you love traveling to, Iowa in February, as anyone would.
That's when the Tater Festival is.
Oh, exactly.
Are you making fun of that?
Of course not.
All right.
Who? I'm
just making sure.
My entire year revolves around the Tater Festival.
Because we might be done if you are.
You know that. Come on, Brant.
Right.
I would never besmirch the Tater Festival.
All right.
So when you're up there this year on your annual trip, you're looking closer than ever at a chance for sports betting. So, Brant, overall, what this means is maybe as soon as the end of 2019, looking ahead, beginning of 2020, we could have 25 or half of all U.S. states in a best case scenario with legalized sports betting.
So that's why this matters now. That's why this is timely. And I know for a lot of folks out there, this feels like it's an onrushing process. It's going very fast. But if you really think about it, people have been betting on stuff in this country for years. It's always happened.
And other countries.
And other countries, I mean, we always use England as the example, where basically there's a betting shop on every corner, like a drugstore or something. I mean, it's everywhere. It's pervasive. It's just part of the mainstream culture.
Betting is like their McDonald's.
It absolutely is, and it probably tastes better.
Maybe for them. Hopefully they're better than us.
We didn't have any chance of getting McDonald's as a sponsor, did we?
Not anymore.
Yeah. So it definitely tastes better. Okay, so the thing is, I think folks are going to notice if they're watching television and they're paying attention now, they're going to see there's more elements of sports betting being presented to them. ESPN Crawl. The other day I'm watching that thing and you got that little -7 there in front of a sports team, who they're playing this weekend in college football. That's the line. They've snuck the line in there.
That's what that means?
They snuck the line in there.
Oh, man.
That's not the temperature in Green Bay this week. They snuck the line in there.
Whoa.
And for years
changes
and years,
everything.
It does change everything. This is like the sun has come up for the first time. But there's always been these elements in the mainstream media.
Not in Green Bay.
No. Back in those 3 channels, they had back in the heyday. Jimmy the Greek on CBS. He was on there. Exactly. Google that. He was up every Sunday morning and he was with Brent Musburger and they were talking about the lines. And it was sort of more of that accepted thing, and then it kind of went away. The attitudes and the belief system sort of changed, and people didn't talk about betting that much. Al Michaels, everybody knows.
Know who that is?
Al Michaels. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. This guy, when he's on the football telecast.
How old were you for the Miracle on Ice?
I have no problem telling you, but that requires me to do quick math.
Okay, so we'll come back later.
I do love how you keep referencing my greater experience and wisdom, so don't think you're getting under my skin with that one. So anyway,
that's a nice swing.
So Al Michaels, well, you brought up your spelling bee or whatever that thing was. Oh no, geography, where you were the only one to get it wrong. Anyway, so
way to rub that in.
Yeah, Al Michaels.
Still fresh.
Everybody watches the Kentucky Derby, first Saturday in May. My goodness, that's one of the biggest wagering things in the entire world. It's built around that.
Mama had a lot of money spent on the 1, 3, and 5 horses of the Kentucky Derby.
Seriously, she must have hit that.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't remember.
We're gonna need better research department.
Yeah, I'll look back. I'll try to find her betting slips from the early 90s.
There you go. So the thing is, this may seem overwhelming. It may seem like there's massive change coming and there's this new wave, but it's been here forever. It's just different. It's actually It's legal now, or it probably soon will be in your state. And I think a lot of folks out there are going to realize that the pivot from DraftKings, FanDuel, the fantasy sports really isn't that much of a change.
I get FanDuel and DraftKings. That's my era.
Yeah,
I get that.
There you go. See, I try to lure you along.
So you're talking about
I'm trying to lure you.
so when DraftKings and FanDuel came out, everywhere we looked, we started seeing those commercials, those
Yes.
ads on buses, on everything you looked at. So maybe something kind of similar with gambling, you're saying here, sports betting?
I think that it's different than people going into a casino and putting some money in and pulling it and some fruit and some numbers pops up and they go, oh,
Oh,
man.
a slot machine.
Yeah, that thing.
Oh, those.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, man, I didn't win. I mean, who?
I always win slot machines. I have a great slot strategy.
I have no idea. Yeah, pull that handle and then put more and more and more money in there.
Yeah, that's how I win.
Oh, good. So, but people have opinions on sports. You look at the roster of games coming up, and you think that team's going to win or that team's terrible. You have an idea about it. It's a natural extension, just like picking running backs or quarterbacks on your fantasy league team, to plop a little extra money on that and actually wager on the game. Just like you put $50 or whatever into your pot for your fantasy league team, and then that lucky cheating bastard gets it at the end of the year, and it's never
But so
made.
for people who, not to brag, won their fraternity brothers 2011 fantasy football league, that's good news for us.
Yeah. Do you write this stuff on your hand? Do you have like your accomplishments tattooed on your arm?
I have accomplished a lot. 2012.
Still waiting to hear one.
2012 March Madness pool. That was a big win.
Oh my god!
I won like $200.
Okay, all right.
That paid like my bar tabs for a semester.
If you say so. If you say so. Oh, but so basically, I don't think it's a big leap from fantasy sports to legal sports betting. I think it's going to be a lot more familiar and comfortable to folks who, when they get it in their state, they may just kind of take a little flyer on it, like, heck.
Or as they say across the pond, take
Yeah.
a punt or a flutter.
I don't know if we're exactly going to change our vocab over here because people, a punt's the one guy that you
Yeah, they don't get football, so that's why the punt means something different there.
Exactly.
So I don't think that ever anyone's going to be, I'll take a flutter on that match. Yeah, I don't think that's every American's worst nightmare. Some guy with weird teeth coming up and saying that to them.
Has anyone ever told you how good your English accent is?
No,
they haven't.
Bloody
they
good.
haven't. No, they haven't.
I'm a old chap off the old block. I'm from northwest Londonshire.
That speechless. So again,
Impressive, right?
yeah. So
Add that to the list of accomplishments.
yeah. So I think that this is going to be more natural to folks than they might actually believe.
All right. With that being said, what physically might this look like? Is there going to be anything different? Are we going to be seeing stuff like, it was this like taboo, like if you wanted to place a bet, you had to find a guy in a trench coat behind an alley somewhere. Like, are we ever going to see something like, like they do in Europe? It's crazy, but, the English soccer team, Real Madrid, the classic English soccer team.
I believe they're from Spain.
Same thing.
Okay.
So, whatever, one of them will have one of these betting companies or bet on us or anything. Are we going to ever see something like that in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, you look at the relationships that pro sports leagues are starting to strike. The NBA has been out in front. They have an official partner with MGM. They have an over-under game that they sort of hid on their website, but the relationship there is open. The official, what is the term? The gambling partner? I don't recall, but basically,
I'm asking you.
They have a partnership with the casino. The Baltimore Ravens have a relationship with the casino. The Dallas Cowboys have an official casino partner. The Vegas Knights, and this makes all the sense in the world, have a relationship with oddsmaker William Hill. The lines are
Is that a person or a company?
Yes. It had to be a person at some point.
I'm assuming Mr. Hill.
Yeah, I call him Bill when I ring him up. But there's live odds
Look at you.
on this jumbotron hanging over the ice. There's people on their phones doing live bets on things. It's going to become more natural, and I think the phone is the hook. Just like television networks target that very crucial 18 to 30 whatever that number seems to change all the time. Yeah, there you go. That seems to change all the time, but I hear studies all the time that that millennials want to gamble on their phones. Now, I assume,
Confirmed.
I assume, well,
non-rotary phones.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that these studies are true, because I would like to not think that these people are lying to me, that these studies actually exist. But it seems like the perfect arc to get someone from watching a game to betting on their phone. If you're a television network and there's a Tuesday night Mid-American Conference game that honestly
Maction
that you may otherwise have no interest in, if you suddenly are placing a bet on that game, well, you're a little bit interested in that, and you're watching that on television.
You're telling me you need an excuse to watch Bowling Green play Toledo on a Tuesday at 9:00?
Yeah, but if it's Akron, I'll tune in for a little bit.
Oh, that's right. Big Zips fan.
Zips. Love
forgot
those
about
Zips.
that.
Love those Zips. So that, to me, is going to become the natural part. I don't know, as we sort of recess to a society that still loves to hang out on our couch, if we're going to go to sports books. But I think, man, if you kids get off your Instagram and your Snap book or whatever you guys do in your mom's basement, you love your Snap book in your mom's basement. I think if you start betting on these things, then you might be floating a lot of those gambling boats.
There we go. Hey, all for it.
So, Ryan, this sounds simple, and I guess it is, in the sense that states can elect to do this, and then their citizens get to go bet on things. But simple doesn't mean easy. There's a lot of obstacles to go. There's a lot of issues to plow through, and each state is different, because sort of like the mentality of the citizenry in each of these states is different. Like, what do you consider to be some of the main impediments or the challenges these states are going to have to face?
The biggest challenge is these states getting in their own way, honestly. When you get these people together, state legislators, everyone, it can be a pretty messy process. A lot of people are not elected because of their expertise on any issue, and especially not gambling, which really wasn't available in the most part. Sometimes outside influences, lobbyists, as we know, can really sort of derail things, and it takes a while. One of the biggest examples that you might have heard of, and the industry is worried about, these stakeholders. Is what the leagues used to call integrity fees.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB, PGA, any other acronym league you can think of, they all, for the most part, for decades, came out against sports betting. When they saw the writing on the wall, they said, oh, well, yeah, we want to be part of sports betting, but we deserve a cut of it, was their argument. And because they wanted the money. The American Gaming Association, the biggest trade group that looks into all this, estimates that Americans wager $150 billion, with a B, dollars every year on illegal gambling through different means and all that. So the leagues, obviously, cha-ching, dollar signs in their eyes. How do we get that money, as much of it as we can? Their argument was what they called integrity fees. They argued that in order to protect from shady, nefarious outside gambling influences, they needed 1% of all bets placed to go back to them to help create security guards, I guess. They said educate, okay, I'm sure that costs a lot of money to tell people don't take money from the guy in the back alley. That was their pitch, was we need this. Amazingly, that didn't go over too well with anybody. State legislatures said no. They didn't want it because it meant less money for them, and it was a pretty poor argument. Sports betting has been in Nevada. Sorry, Nevada. It's been around since the 1940s, Brant's prime.
Yeah.
We've, for the most part, survived. I know the Black Sox scandal was tough for you. I know you remember that very vividly. But
I don't have to Google it.
We've been okay. So the fact that Santa Ana Star in New Mexico has a sports book, there's a guy taking the sports bets there, probably isn't going to change the outcome of the Super Bowl. So the leagues started to do that when they started to change their perspective. They couldn't pitch on integrity fees.
Here, I'm torn on this. Here's my point. You talk about all the money that had been bet on these leagues illegally. There was no fee coming from Joe Bookie out by the dumpster to keep the trainer.
Was that your go-to?
If it was, I protected him by changing his name. There is no one stopping, like the trainer from the team going out and giving him information. No one is from the illegal market is protecting the leagues or their information. So why do they want to tax the legal market? It seems sort of incongruent there. I don't really understand that. But when they changed it to royalty, I kind of, in a way, understand where they're getting there because they use intellectual property. It's just sort of like if an artist makes a song and then like you're really stupid and try to use their song on your podcast.
Not that we tried that.
They're going to sue your theoretical pants off. Or if you snip someone's article without attribution, you're going to get probably mad and send them a red hot email and say, hey, you better cite me and put a hyperlink in there just because you need to be taught a lesson.
Brant is going to get his dial-up internet going, get that AOL account just revved up. He's going to send them a strongly worded instant message.
You kids who never had the glory and the joy of hearing that squawk and wondering if it was going to
I remember the squawk.
All right, YouTube, you can figure this stuff out
I was
later.
hanging out with you. You still have it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so I see their point there. It's still not going to work. But the royalty, I think maybe they changed the name just to make it more palatable. Mainstream folks say, yeah, maybe you deserve that, but I don't think they're going to get it anyway. Do you?
Because it's money, and more money for the leagues means less money for casinos, means less money for state bottom lines financially. It's highly unlikely. However, as we've seen with West Virginia, which was its own podcast in itself, what's gone on there and a lot of other things, sometimes these league influences can make a big difference. West Virginia, for example, has 5 casinos that wanted to take sports bets through some things that I couldn't fully understand, minutia and hurdles. It took a while for any others to get it. Only 2 started out; the others wanted it. It's been a hassle for them. So yeah, you can see that issue is still there. We'll see. So far, the early adapters of those 6 states that Brant has let us know very well, we could put them out on a map for you.
Mm-hmm.
They are not doing it for the most part, really not at all. And it's probably that next wave. I would not bet on that happening.
So you've got a bunch of folks out there that want to bet on some stuff, and they love to do it legally. Probably a better deal for them. You got a huge pile of money in the middle, and you got the states that have to figure it out.
Pretty much.
Sum that right up.
Wow. All right. Good job.
And to that end, summing up this podcast, our glorious first edition, I think
what could be several.
Hopefully, yeah. Basically, our day jobs, we work for gambling.com. We're still sports writers, but I think as we're trying to get across, gambling is going to be more and more a part of daily sports writing. I think you're going to see mainstream stories that talk about the quarterback getting hurt and how that affects the odds. We do that. We think we're out front on this. Honestly, I don't want to stretch it too much, Ryan, but I think we might be saving journalism.
I mean, just us being in the industry was step 1.
Yeah.
This is, I think, step 2.
Yeah.
Actually, step 3 is podcasting. That's kind of journalism to begin with.
They will speak of this day at the Poynter Institute.
About the demise of the industry.
Yeah. Hopefully we get more than just a little chapter, but please come by and see what we do at gambling.com. We've got a staff of very talented writers. We got everything covered. What do? We have a story about a dancing contest on the English version.
That was my favorite story of the year.
It was super.
The Great British Bake Off. I watch it with my fake, not so fake British accent. It's really good.
Did you really watch that?
Every episode.
Oh, that's glorious. But we cover everything.
I love baking.
No. But please come by gambling.com. There's a lot of interesting stuff there. We not only cover sports stories, sort of in real time, getting you ready for the weekend's games if you do have an opportunity to bet legally on some sporting events, but we also cover a lot of issues. Ryan is knee deep, elbow deep in the legislation aspect of it. A lot of limbs. We cover the trends, we cover sports business angles, because it's going to all be the same thing. And it may surprise you how it is all going to be the same thing in the future. So we would love it if you come by and take a look. So in further summation, I believe we have reached the end of the first episode, and I believe we've done some good here today, Ryan.
I'm sure we have done good here today.
Yeah, I have no doubt. If you believe that too, and I know you do, why don't you just go ahead and like this podcast, maybe even subscribe. If you have some suggestions, some criticisms, some questions, hop on Twitter and check out @BadderBeats, BADDERBEATS. That's a lot of letters all smashed together.
You could have been in the middle school spelling bee.
I would have done better than you did in that geography bee.
Wow, that's a top 10 finish, top 9 finish. That's oof.
Honestly,
Take a bet on that.
that's honestly not that good. At Batter Beats on Twitter.
Wow.
Or you can do the same. Questions, criticisms, or other little comments you might have at me, at Brant James, BrantJames, all smashed together, one word, on Twitter. Ryan, any final words? What you got to say?
I'm going to go study more geography.
Yeah, I think it's needed. All right. So with that, for Ryan Butler, I'm Brant James, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. And remember, even if everything seems bad, it could still be badder.